Truthfully, what happens is, as children grow up, we start to educate them progressively from the waist up. And then we focus on their heads and slightly to one side.
I think in the old days, you were better off. Because nowadays, they're all specialists. Everyone's becoming better and better. And less and less. And eventually someone's going to be superb. Like nothing.
Our education system has mined our minds in the way that we strip mined the earth for a particular commodity. And for the future, it won't serve us. We have to rethink the fundamental principles on which we're educating our children.
We're not here to tell everybody that they're wrong and we're right. We're not saying that we have all the answers, but we'd like to present a different way of looking at it.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to China Jeducation, episode 41. My name is Taylor Williams, and I am a coordinator of digital learning, as well as an instructional designer and instructor for Teach Now Graduate School of Education. I am coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas.
Texas, wonderful to have another American educational expert on. Welcome to the China Jeducation show, Taylor. I want to kick off by telling the listeners, as you've just said, that not only are you a teacher, but you have fantastic experience in the online education realm, and of course have been working with the Teach Now program for many years. So we're going to really delve into that. I think you've been a module instructor for every one of the modules. So you've got a fantastic load of knowledge to share with us today, especially those listening who are maybe thinking of doing the Teach Now program or who are indeed on it. But even so, just for other teachers too, I think we're going to learn a lot of stuff today. So welcome. Right. What we want to begin with first is you're from Fort Worth, Texas. Is that where you're from? Did you grow up there?
No, I grew up in Denver, Colorado. And was through high school, was in Colorado, then left and actually came to Texas for my undergrad, and went to Baylor University, and then went back to Colorado after college, and that's where I met my wife. And shortly after we got married, we moved, and we lived in Hong Kong for about 6 years. So. Yes,
which we will get to a little later. And you're also in the club of Mad and Stupid like myself. You have 3 children and another one on the way, I do believe, Taylor.
That's right. Our 4th is on the way. That'll put us at 3 girls and a boy. The youngest coming in April is another little girl. So we are very excited, very blessed to have that. I tell people God gave me long arms for many children. So that's where we're at. We're excited for that. And I'm up very early in the morning just because that's my only time that I can hide away from all of the little monsters, which is excellent.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it. One other thing I have to say with the 4th coming along, and major congratulations to you and your family, is that you're going to be about $2 million in debt as well.
Yeah.
Which, you know.
It is what it is, and we'll figure that out when we get there. You know, it's one of those.
It's only money, as they say, and of course, you know, as they grow up, the rate of return is the return on investment is going to go up somewhat. Although I haven't quite seen it when I look at other families. But anyway, marvelous stuff, and that's really great news. Always wonderful to hear of another bambino coming into the world. So Denver, Colorado. Sounds wonderful place up in the mountains. If I'm right, I've never actually been there yet. What was school like, Taylor? Do you enjoy school? Fond memories.
Yeah, I think all through school, I had a great high school, middle school, high school experience. I went to a smaller public high school. It was actually combined middle school, high school. So 6th through 12th grade was in the building. But it was rare. It was the only one public high school that was like that in the area. But had a great experience, was able to do well in school. You know, from my position now, looking back, it's kind of, I understood the game of school. And so I was able to I wasn't the valedictorian by any means, but I didn't really struggle that much. Enjoyed athletics, was able to be successful in going to, state tournaments in tennis, won a state championship in basketball.
There you go.
Was able to do student council. So I did choir and band. I was just kind of like that Renaissance kid. I just kind of did everything. Wasn't focused on one thing, but just kind of spread myself over everything that the schedule would allow. And so really enjoyed it. It allowed for me to just kind of come out of high school with just a good balance of experiences to then that I've, looking back, have seen very valuable in my college and then in my careers that I've had. It's been very valuable just to be able to have all those different areas of interest.
Yeah, indeed. And that's exactly how school should be. I just wish everyone would have the same experience, right? Of course. But the doors are there, or for a lot of us are there, and it's for us to turn the handle and walk through them, especially when we get to university or college. What did you study, by the way, when you went to college, or we'd say university in England?
Yeah, in university, I was majoring. My undergrad is a Bachelor of Science in Education, but actually my degree is in Recreation and Sports Ministry. And so it was a lot of leadership. It was a lot of outdoor education, with the intent of, when I graduated, going and working as my initial career when I got out of the university was to work in youth ministry. And I was working at a church when I moved back to Colorado. That was my first job there. And so I was able to bring all the outdoor education stuff, but then music. And I was, at the time, I took one, I think, class on, different sorts of design. So I was doing a lot of that with the church and creating publications and things like that. And so it lends itself well to everything that was happening. And it was easy to transition into teaching as well. Once I had that experience from university and into my first job there.
Speaking of schools, any teacher out there that you would classify as someone of inspiration that you look back to putting you on your path of success, either elementary or middle school or something like that? Yeah,
absolutely. I remember my 5th grade teacher, Mr. Blumenthal. He was excellent, and I actually had him. Teaching was, I think, a second or third career, because he was an older teacher, but he was a first-time teacher when I had him. And I remember the first thing, big dude, 6'2", and just muscled out, former military guy. And I remember him, we were in a temporary building, which was not in the school building, but outside. In the U.S., we have, if the school outgrows the population, then they add these buildings that are called temporary buildings. It's a modular building. That's almost a single classroom with 2 small bathrooms and a storage closet, just to be able to add more kids. So we had that, and I remember the door flying open the first day, and we're all lined up there, little 5th graders, and he just has his yardstick in his hand, and he says, "You're here, come in." And from there, it was just kind of this intense journey where he made us. It wasn't a discipline in the sense of fear, but it was a discipline in the sense of that respect and kind of bringing that military piece in. So, and instead of just walking in line, we marched. He taught us how to march. He had the cadence. Everything like that, but he also, once he kind of brought us into that level of respect and discipline, then he started to have fun with it. And I have a vivid memory of him. We were working on a test or a quiz or something. We were all very quiet, and I looked up, and we kind of locked eyes, and he winked at me. And he had, like I said, his first day, his yardstick was kind of his tool of choice, and he had a whole tube of yardsticks. And so he pulled one out, and he held up his hand to his lips just to tell me just to be quiet. And I just kind of watched him to see what was happening. And there was a desk at the front of the classroom that was empty. And he kind of just strolled around like he was looking. And then all of a sudden he just wound up and he smacked that desk with his yardstick as hard as he could, splintering the yardstick. And we all kind of yelp and scream and look up, and he's like, "Hey, let's take a break." And just wanted to just have some fun, so it was very strict, but it was very fun, and he cared so much about us. And I know that he went on to teach middle school Spanish after that, after a few years in the elementary realm, and he was a great teacher.
Your memories, Taylor, are so vivid. and clear. You could almost, as you're talking, picture yourself in the room there with you as you look up to Mr. Is Blumenfeld, did you say?
Blumenthal.
Blumenthal, there you go.
Yeah,
he'd have smacked his yardstick on my desk if I said that, I'm sure. But I want to move on from that. Great stuff there. And go into actually how you, after university, went into teaching. I mean, I don't believe you did go into teaching straight away. And so if you could answer that, but also tell us, if you were like myself or not, you saw a career in teaching when you were going through school. You know, like you see these teachers you look up to, you maybe wanted to do that when you were older, or is it something that came later in your career?
You know, it came later. Like I said, my initial goal out of university was to work in ministry and to come out of university in the and doing youth ministry, youth work. Just working with kids. I enjoyed being with the kids outside of the classroom because though I had a great experience in high school and middle school, I know that it was hard for a lot of people. And, you know, I've had family members who did not have the same experiences that I had. And so having that extra support growing up was also really important. And so I wanted to be that and had an opportunity to do that. Plus in that job, I could do a lot more different games and do different sort of events and trips and stuff to be able to really support kids and do that. And so it wasn't until really like my wife and I got married, and my wife at the time was a teacher. She was a special ed teacher in Colorado where we lived. And so I was doing work with the church, and she was doing teaching. And it wasn't until, you know, the economy kind of went sideways, and her county, which is the same as a school district, put a freeze on salaries. And so we kind of had a decision to make. And the influence of my parents actually came into play, because my parents they were the ones that initiated the idea of moving overseas and moving to China, because at the time they had already been in Shanghai for I think 2 years. And so they threw it out there. My mom, she said, hey, you could easily find a job at an international school. And, you know, my wife's name is Stacia. With Stacia's experience, and then with what you do, I think there are schools that would take both of you as teachers. And so that kind of opened the door to what came next, which was moving into the international realm. And, you know, going into those, we went through different interviews. I think we were with the Schroll company, but before it was, you know, International School Services or whatever. And we were looking at different schools. We were looking at different locations and areas. And, you know, it's one of those things. And I think that we all have that moment where, you know, you want to become independent of your parents. And, you know, when parents give you advice, you're like, okay, yeah, I know, but I can figure this out on my own. And I remember that how when we started down this path of, okay, let's look internationally, my mom had said, well, hey, check out ICS in Hong Kong. And we were like, okay, yeah, whatever. I don't know. We'll do that one. Lo and behold, ICS is the one that calls us. And you know, really is interested in my wife to become the student services teacher for the secondary school. And then, you know, they started asking questions about ICS is the International Christian School in Hong Kong, and asking questions about what I was doing with the church. And finally my wife was like, would you just like to talk to my husband? Yeah. And so they were asking me just about what I had done, my experiences, what my degree was in, you know, and things like that. And then they came and they said, well, would you be interested in actually teaching a religion class? Would you be interested in teaching middle school religion? And I said, well, yeah, absolutely. I would totally do that, because, you know, for those who don't know, if you want to work international, it's better to have a couple than to have, you know, to try and do it with an individual, with a single spouse. So that made us much more marketable. And so then when we were hired by ICS, I remember the morning getting the contract in the email and turning to my wife and being like, you remember how we thought we were going overseas? Well, we're going. It's here. It's real. And that's when that holy crap moment hits, and you're just like, oh no. But then it was funny after that, having conversations with the middle school principals, because we'd Skype with them after kind of like the post hiring interview, and he's like, okay, so we've got you lined up for religion. And he's like, but I had a question. How do you feel about math?
Yeah,
I
here we
was
go.
like, well, what are we talking about here? We talking calculus? We talking algebra? And he's like, well, we're talking algebra. I was like, I was pretty good at math in high school, and I did well in college. I think I could handle algebra 1. He's like, great, that works. We're going to have you lined up to have one class, one prep of algebra 1, 8th grade algebra 1. I said, okay, perfect. And so I asked him some questions about algebra 1, and then he was like, okay, so I have another question. How do you feel about PE? I was like, well, I'm athletic, and my degree does kind of go in that direction a little bit, so I could do that too, no problem. And later on, though, before we moved, the master schedule came out, and they were able to hire another PE teacher, so I didn't actually end up having to teach PE. But going into my first year of actual classroom teaching, I had 8th grade religion and 8th grade math, algebra 1. But thankfully algebra 1 was a team taught, so I had a class, and then the teacher across the hall had a class as well. So we were pretty settled. She was able to help me kind of limp along the way for that first year when it came to the algebra. So that kind of just chronicles how I got to the classroom, right? It wasn't the plan, but sometimes our best laid plans just end up being dead ends, and we go another direction, and it opens a whole new door of experiences and opportunities.
True that. Well, so when was that you arrived in Hong Kong?
So we arrived the fall of 2011 was our first year. That July of 2011 is when we moved over there. And
out of interest, you said your mum and dad were there for 2 years in Shanghai, I believe. What were they?
Yes.
What were they up to, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, they've been actually since 2000. I think they went the fall of 2007. They moved to Shanghai, and they've been at the Shanghai American School ever since. And this is actually their final year there. They've been there for that long, and it's time to retire and come back to the States. I think the grandbabies kind of have an influence on that, but yeah, they've been at the Shanghai American School, the Pudong campus for this whole time.
Oh wow, that's a great story. So yeah, a real teaching family, Taylor. When you were in Hong Kong, did you? Your classroom that you were doing religious studies in, was it made up? Was it an international? Lots of different nationalities, or was it mostly what you call international Hong Kong local students? Yeah,
it was a good mix. I think about what was the statistic? I think about 80%, 75 to 80% of the students were North American passport holders. So they had a passport from the United States or Canada, and then the rest were from the rest of the world in Hong Kong. But the demographics of the school were significantly 90%, 92% Asian, and then the rest international from there. So lots of North Americans in the classroom, but a lot of international influences as well, which was very cool.
As it was as you were saying, your first real forage into teaching in the classroom when you hit Hong Kong, can't really talk about comparing it perhaps to back home in the States, but in terms of going there, completely different place, China, even Hong Kong, from where you were. What were the major challenges, or the major challenge that you found in the classroom, or even life in Asia?
Well, it was just my wife and I, and we knew that it was going to be a cultural shock. We had in December of 2010, we had gone to Shanghai to visit my folks and to get a feel of it, because we were still in that mix. We had not been hired yet, so we were like, let's go. We had saved the money to go and visit them over Christmas break, and so we went, and we were able to do the touring around, and then we lived with them. We were there for 2 weeks, and we said, well, could we do this? Is this possible? And I think after being in Shanghai, seeing their experience, we were like, yeah, I think we could do this. We're flexible enough, and worst comes to worst, and we can do anything for 2 years, and because that was the typical contract. And so getting there, it was great transition team. The funniest thing is that the most stressful part of going into that job, the move was fine, the people were fine, transitioning to the food was I had one shock. We were eating at a Korean place, and it was like a bulgogi, and I was like, is this it? Is this my life now? Rice and whatever they put on the rice. But that quickly passed because it was so good, and we had some great mentor families that kind of just showed us the ropes and everything like that. But the most stressful part, was not in the classroom. I was happy. I told my wife, I was like, I just can't wait to get into the classroom and get to know the kids, because that's my comfort zone. I can do that. But it was all the teacher lingo. It was going into that first welcome PD session, professional development session, where they're talking about standards and they're talking about, expectations and all this other stuff. And I sat there and I told my wife, I was like, I'm freaking out. I have no idea what's going on. And she had an idea because she'd been teaching for, 6 years before that. And so she kind of helped me limp through it. And then I was talking with another first year in Hong Kong. He had taught in other places. And I was like, do you understand what they're talking about? He's like, a little, but this is all new to me too. So you're not alone on this. So that was comforting too, just be able to have some partners in crime that just we just floated along with it. And my principal was great. Brian Thompson, he was just awesome. He would check in on me. He was very just able to connect. He had been at the school for 13 years at that point, and just was able to really help the transition along as far as the teacher lingo went. And like I said, once school started and the kids showed up, that's when the fun began, and it was really easy to get into the mix of just the curriculum and things like that. I had a lot of freedom within that to bring in some extra ideas and stuff. So it was cool. It was a good mixture of classroom teaching, but then also what I had done before in the ministry realm.
That segues, I think, Taylor, nicely into perhaps, if I'm right in saying, why you then connected into doing the Teach Now program, where you learn obviously a lot about those kind of things, standards, expectations. Is that then, you were there teaching for the first year and you kind of came across Teach Now? How did that work? Because you were the inaugural cohort, weren't you, for Teach Now, the first ever international online. Yeah. Yes. So I had proposed initially for the school, I had proposed a job to be like a dean of student ministries, kind of that role. I proposed that to the dean of curriculum and instruction, and he liked the idea. Went to the headmaster. The board ultimately didn't pass it because I was ultimately thinking, I was like, I need to gain more experience in ministry. I felt like, so that I could, when the time came for us to move back, I could have experience to go back to and have a job to go back to in the United States. And when that one flubbed and it fell through, they didn't want the funding, they didn't want to head in that direction. I was like, okay, now what am I supposed to do? I can teach here. It's legal for me to teach in Hong Kong, but I can't do anything in the United States as far as the classroom goes. So I started searching, and I stumbled upon Teach Now, and its original website, and Emily might correct me on this if she ever comes back on your podcast. You can, challenge this. But I remember the initial website being one to help. It just was a collection of how to get alternative certifications in each state. So in the United States, there are programs where second career people can get a teaching license if you are experienced in certain things, and you come in as what's called an alternative certification. So you go in, and if you have to go into the teacher pool, you have to get hired, but you're competing with other licensed teachers, and then you have a 1-year probation where you're mentored, and they watch you pretty closely before you then are given that full contract of a teacher. And so I had reached out to Emily, who was connected to that website. I just said, hey,
do you have anything to license American teachers who are international? And she wrote back and said, well, we're working on something. We'll let you know, and it should be happening later in the fall, and or it'll be happening soon. And so then didn't really hear from her, and then at the same time I was still kind of in half mindset of still going back into ministry. So I actually started a online class at Denver Seminary, doing some more ministry work. And so I was doing that online class, and then I got an email from Emily saying, "This is my number, call me." And so I called her. It was kind of odd because I didn't, it was just through email, so I had no idea who Emily was. And so, talked to her on the phone. She said, "We're going to have this cohort. It's going to start in January and of 2012. No,
maybe
2013. 2013. Yep, yeah. 2013. And we're going to do this, and you can get your license." And I said, "Let me talk to my wife." And but then came back and said, "Yeah, I think we can double it up and we can do it." And so I can always connect my time with Teach Now with my daughter, because my daughter was born in November of 2012, and then in that January of 2013 is when Teach Now started, and Emily always, every time I am on the phone with her, she's like, how are your girls? I remember your oldest just being there on camera with you sometimes in those VCs, and it was so wonderful to watch her grow, and then obviously through social media we're still connected, and she's like, "Can't believe how your family has grown and the adventures you've been on." So so it was, and my daughter's 7, so it was 7 years ago that we went into that inaugural cohort of Teach Now. So it was quite a connection, kind of just the right doors open and the right connections happened, and that just kind of led into being able to get my certification and get that experience, because I guarantee you, because teach that certification program is 9 months, and so starting in January, we finished in December, late November, early December, with the clinical stuff, but coming into that fall professional development in July, I was ready then. I was confident coming back from all the work that I'd done with Teach Now, and everything made sense. Formative and summative assessments was not an enigma to me anymore. I knew what those were, and so I was ready to go.
I mean, that's brilliant. So right from the start that you were with Teach Now, and that, I guess, is you built the relationship with the team in Washington to then move on later, Taylor, into actually becoming one of the coordinators for one of their 8 modules, right?
Well, I wouldn't call it coordinator. I'm an instructor. The way it went, I finished with Teach Now, with that cohort. I did my clinical work and got all that completed, and Emily reached out and said, "It's been so much fun having you here. I think that you'd be an excellent instructor. Mm-hmm. Will you come on and be an instructor for us? Because we're going to start opening up more cohorts, and we're going to need some instructors to do this." And she talked about what it would look like, and I said, yes, absolutely, and I just had the first child and was looking at just life and trying to figure out ways of maybe having my wife stay at home eventually one day. And so I was like, any sort of side gig I could get, I was ready for. And so I jumped in, and it was really cool to be, just Emily and Donna Golnick was there, and we had one other instructor that were kind of our first 3 that we were there and talking through how the process works and things like that. So from then on, it was, after that first inaugural cohort, that was the only level of cohorts I had never taught in. Everything else from then on, I've been with Teach Now as an instructor. And then later on, and I don't know if you want to talk about this now, but just this past, actually a year ago, I was approached by Janet Stokes and the Teach Now team to design and write the Masters of Educational Technology program. And so that's the only extra thing that's been, you as an instructor, you're able to speak into the different modules, and they've asked for they're completely different in as far as different tools that are being used and some of the actual activities from when I went through it, 7 years ago. But all of it, the structure is still the same. And then, so I was able to speak through all those modules that I taught and still teach. But then also had the opportunity to build this Master's of Educational Technology. But that was kind of, out of order. Teach Now inspired me to, after finishing it, really look into the realm of bringing technology into the classroom. And between my Teach Now experience and then my principal came in and said, what would you do with a classroom set of iPads? That kind of, opened my curiosity, dove into it, and immediately after completing Teach Now, I enrolled and was to get my Master's of Educational Technology with Boise State University online. And so then I did that while being an instructor for Teach Now, while teaching in Hong Kong, and while having then a second child along the way, and things like that. So it was a busy time, but it was good. And it really opened up, teaching was my second career. It opened up doors for I call it my third career in moving into technology coaching and this realm that I'm now currently in.
Are you looking to further your career in education? Teach Now offers a convenient online teacher preparation and master's degree program completed anywhere in the world.
Reach now for Teach Now. Ain't no time for defeat now. Teachers, get off your seats now. Future generations need you now.
Work with people all over the world in a collaborative, activity-based teaching environment.
To learn more, visit teach-now.edu.
Expertise that is really outside of the box.
For the listeners, there's 8 core modules in total for the actual Teach Now teacher preparation program, right, Taylor? And within those 8, you have the program orientation, the culture of schooling, the learner and learning in the digital age. You've got managing the learning environment, student assessments. There's your formative and summative stuff. Planning and preparation for learning, introduction to the clinical practice, and then obviously you have the practical where you work in a school, so to speak, the teaching practice and proficiency. Out of those ones, because you've delved into all of them as an instructor, what's the one that you found the most that resonates with you in terms of most interesting, or you enjoy doing the most?
I with my experience in ed tech, 3 has always been kind of the one they've put me in the most.
Right, yeah. Learner
module
and
3.
Learning, the digital age.
Yeah. Just because of being able to, that one really in the process of the program, kind of module 2, when you're getting into the culture of schooling and things like that, it's still very new for the candidates. And they're still trying to figure things out of what is this online learning environment looking like. And so coming into 3, they kind of come in thinking, where am I at? What am I doing? And so it's really cool to be able to sit with them and say, look, the way that you are learning right now is completely different from anything you've ever done before. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at how this learning could be really effective for you in your classroom. And really not focusing on the tools necessarily, but focusing on the opportunities that different technologies can offer within the classroom. And so module 3 is the one that I've taught the most. But I enjoy all of them. I enjoy the assessment one purely because the more time that I do what I do now, the more important formative data really is becoming. And it's something that even when I was teaching, I did not realize. And so I really like to do the assessment module because I like to speak into the importance of that data and to be able to brainstorm different ideas on how to collect and use the data for the classroom to create more of that personalized learning experience for the kids. And then I really enjoy being in module 8 as well. Module 7 and 8 typically are connected when you're an instructor, because you prepare for the clinical practice and then you're doing the clinical practice, because you get to see them, the teachers teach, and you get to speak into that as well, and you get to have the experiences with them. And going through those 9 months, they build this relationship, this connection, And as an instructor, when you're with them in modules, 1 through 6, you get to know them a little, you have a little experience with them, but you're with them at most maybe 6 times if you're in one of the bigger modules.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you're with them for 14 weeks, you get to know them and you get to see them in action and you get to speak into it and you get to see them at their highs and you get to help lift them in their lows, and you get to build those good connections with them as you're working with them through those clinical experiences, which is really cool.
I mean, talking about the clinical, for those listeners out there now who are in it perhaps and maybe going to be entering into the clinical, where they work in a real classroom environment and they do videos of themselves, towards the standards that you have to obviously achieve to in the end get the license. Taylor, do you have a major tip that you give them out there? Just a one golden nugget for the clinical?
Yeah, I think that it would be get comfortable being on video. And
yes.
And there are opportunities throughout modules 1 through 6 where there's some of that is happening, but it's inevitable. That's a central core piece of how you can complete the certification program and do Teach Now, is that you need to learn how to video yourself and have some light experience in editing video. And not in the sense of trying to do this cinematic event, but just in the idea of being able to add some words here and there, take a 45-minute video and cut it down to 20 minutes, still keeping all the good pieces that you want that show you that you're completing the standards of the week. But video is the big piece. Getting comfortable with creating, being on camera, and being able to then upload a video to YouTube or to Vimeo or wherever it needs to go, and allow for others to watch it. And it's interesting because video is vulnerable, right? As much as we are in a video age, seeing yourself on video, hearing your voice, it's always fun. The after the first week, they do there's a first baseline video. It's kind of let's do this video and see just how it goes. And then do a reflection on it. And a lot of times I've had candidates come back and say, I didn't realize I talk so loud, or I didn't realize that my attitude just changes so quick, or that I didn't realize how quiet I was, or I don't like the sound of my own voice, or things like that, because there's not a lot of experience of them doing a video. And so video is a big part of it. It's something that can be stressful for candidates coming into that clinical experience. And so if there's one thing to practice before you get there, it would be get pretty proficient with how you're going to do your videos.
Yeah, and maybe a little baby step towards that, listeners, would be to do a podcast and get used to your voice. That took me some time. Right. But yeah, brilliant. That's great. That really resonates, and I couldn't agree more actually with someone who's been through that clinical too. With the technology, because clearly doing videos, cutting them, seeing yourself in it, you're using technology. But being someone whose expertise is in that, and you've been in the classroom for those many years in Hong Kong, Taylor, how's it been in terms of an experience as an instructor or a teacher, moving from a physical environment where you can really see touch the kids, but in the same room as physical environment as them, to then move into a virtual one? How is that for you? Do you like it as much? How does it float your boat as much, being kind of on a computer, speaking to using Zoom or whatever you use at Teach Now? Do you like it as much? How does that go with you?
Yeah, I think the students are different, right? Teaching adults is a little different than 8th graders in some ways. So, I can't imagine hurting 30 8th graders in Zoom. I don't think that's possible in there. I don't know how many of them would zone out on Minecraft or YouTube while I'm trying to tell them something.
You'd have to use that, wouldn't you, to teach?
Right, exactly. You'd have to just implement it in that our classroom is in Minecraft or something like that, which I've seen, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So I think the coolest part about Teach Now is the fact that we do get to meet face to face with our candidates, or as a candidate with your cohort weekly. I got my master's fully online and through Boise State, but there was never an element that was like that. It was always discussion boards.
Right,
you
yeah.
know, or collaborating through email and Google
Old
Docs
school.
and things like that. And even my online course that I took in Denver Seminary, same thing. Everything was discussion boards. So the fact that you're able to meet face to face, you're able to see the people you're working with, you're able to meet them. You can, you know, build connections as you slowly get to know them over time. It's awesome to be able to do that, and that's the difference. I think that if I was an online teacher, I would still, I think, enjoy it, but it wouldn't have as much enjoyment if all I was doing was reading discussion posts and grading activities. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's that face-to-face element adds a relationship piece that is an awesome connection. And I've had the opportunity too to meet some of the candidates that I've taught over the years, and sometimes they were actually my colleagues at the school that I was teaching at, and so it's been neat to do that. I remember in Hong Kong, our school was hosting a conference for ACSI, and I got an email from this guy, and he was like, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I was in your cohort at this time, and I'm going to be at the conference. I can't wait to connect and meet with you." And it was just really neat to meet him in person and have just talk about how Teach Now had affected his pathway of his career, and then he had actually also moved into the realm of educational technology, so we were able to collaborate there and talk about different things as well. So it's been really neat to have those connections and to be able to just be face to face in that piece. I think that's the biggest important piece, is just being able to see everybody and to get to know them.
Right, Taylor, let's put all this aside and get into the nitty gritty, because as you said earlier, you teach the Masters of Education Technology through Teach Now across the world to many students wanting to get their Masters. Education technology then sounds very technological, clearly. What does it involve? Because it's a very broad kind of couple of words.
Absolutely. It is. It can be misunderstood, and it can be misconstrued in a lot of ways, or it can be defined in a lot of ways. I always define it out as, I'm not the guy who comes in to help you fix your printer or to actually do the nuts and bolts of your computer and actually fix it when it's broken. I am the learning guy. I am the one who's coming in to help you to make your learning experiences just have a little more. You know, Michael Fullen is an educator, and he has a quote that says, you know, pedagogy is the driver, technology is the accelerator. And meaning that if your accelerator is busted and you're only able to go really slow, you're still on pedagogy, you can still do that lesson. The Wi-Fi cuts out, you're a teacher, you can teach the lesson, you can figure it out. But if you have the opportunity and you have the means to bring in different strategic ideas and tools, it can create immense opportunity for your students to have greater understanding, deeper learning. I can go both ways: deeper learning, higher order thinking, wherever you want to go when it comes to their learning experiences. And so educational technology is just kind of taking that idea of innovation and putting it into the classroom. If innovation is doing something new or better, then educational technology is the means to get there within the classroom where it's available. Because there are, you know, I've had candidates who are in places that they don't have the technology available, or their school doesn't allow for it to happen. And so the first thing that I tell them is that, well, if you can get your hands on some duct tape and some cardboard, we can be innovative. It doesn't always have to be an app or a tool. So I think it's a whole mindset. I think it's not just one thing. You know, some would say educational technology is about how to use apps and iPads in the classroom. Well, that's part of it. But if you go through the Masters of Educational Technology with Teach Now, it's partially learning about those apps, but it's partially about becoming a professional development expert. It's about learning how to be an instructional coach. It's about looking at not only having some experience liaisoning with the IT side of your building, seeing what the infrastructure is and what it could handle, but also looking at what do the teachers want and need. My colleague here in Fort Worth, she says the best way to describe what she does as essentially what we call them digital learning specialists, but an instructional technology expert or an ed tech coach. She says, I'm a teacher, but I just have more time. And so we're the ones that are able to sit down with you as a teacher, and you say, well, I'd really like to integrate some more gamification into this classroom, or into this lesson that I have coming up, but I don't know how. And I can say, well, let me work on some ideas, and then we can come back, we can collaborate, we can create this experience for your kids together. So they support the content. They're the content experts. I'm going to help kind of remarket it or make it fit into what the goal is. And then we're going to create this experience for the kids that's going to be really memorable. And again, a lot of it does deal on the digital side, but a lot of it is just coming in with a different perspective or a different idea than what's always been done. Yeah, and I think that's a great point that you make there, because it's almost like a partnership. You're like, now you're the secondary coordinator of digital learning, right, for the school in Fort Worth, Texas. And, yes. Teachers, maybe they've been teachers for many years, and I won't say stuck in their ways, but they have their program that they use and it works. And now, of course, we have technology coming along, and it's coming into many classrooms now, and it's quicker and it's easier and it's more free than it's ever been. But it's just nice to have someone like you, that coach, to sit down and just say, well, look, that's what you're doing last year. We can still do that, but let's snazz it up. I don't think gives it enough credit, really, to what you're suggesting you do. But that's the way it's got to be. And, I read through some of your stuff. You also help in the makerspace designing. I have experience of that went into an international school here. And the person, Adam Domenico, did a good 3-part series on how he opened it and launched it, got the budget for it. And then, most importantly, which is what you're doing technology-wise, is how to integrate and get the teachers on board, because that's absolutely key, isn't it? There's no point one person doing it. It's got to be sustainable. So you're doing makerspace, and you're also incorporating stuff that they're already doing, as you said. So really great. I would love. I'm going to say to my researchers, we're going to have to get you back on, Taylor, because I think talking about this, it could go on for another podcast. Quite frankly, because I'd really love to delve down into a few little things that you've said today and go more into them. But I know time is coming to an end for this. And so what I want to do is, I'll tell you quickly my situation at the school, and I'm coming to the end of my contract. And one of the big reasons that I'm not going to be renewing it is because at no point am I allowed, or I have any facility, Taylor, to take my class to a computer. Now, again, you can say, well, you can use duct tape, cardboard, whatever. Well, wonderful. We don't even have a maker space, or we have a steam room. It's called Steam, but there's nothing in it except just some boxes of things. We don't need to go into that. But my point is, it's so key now that our kids are not only needing to do it because that's going to be the job place and what they're going to be using as tools when they're older to create with, but kids love it. They love using technology. So all those teachers out there that aren't on board with this, and I understand if they haven't got the resources like I have, but if they do, and they have a tailor at the end of the room who's doing this kind of stuff, have a conversation with them, because it can open your mind and really your eyes to giving the students just a much bigger, holistic, wonderful learning experience. So I just absolutely love this, what you're doing. And I want to go just quickly. Give me a few tidbits of, if you were a restaurant and a menu, and you come into a school, into a classroom, someone like myself, for example, who's pretty au fait with tech. I'm pretty open to it. Obviously, in the classroom at the moment, I don't have much access to it, but I would love to. If I met someone like you, I'd say, look, what were the 3 big things that you could say I should be doing, Taylor? You've mentioned iPads. So I don't know if you're going to bring that in, but I'd also was thinking how you were talking about the formative assessment, how you're actually using that data in a numerical, quantitative sense. I don't know if you're using a piece of technology there, so you've got these datas on the kids, so you can really personalize how they're progressing. What would be your, I don't know if it's free, but a few things that you would definitely implement into that classroom if the resources and the budget was there? Yeah. So what grade do you teach?
So I'm a grade 3 teacher, at the moment, elementary.
Perfect. Yeah. So in your scenario, where you don't really have, the technology that's available, I'm going to assume that you have a smartphone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Plickers would be the first thing that I would introduce to your class, just to, again, get that formative assessment. It's a tool that all you need is one device, your smartphone.
Right.
And what you do is you enter in your students' names onto the roster online. You sign up and it's free. And what Plickers does is it gives you QR codes that you print out, and there's one for every kid. And what happens is that you would ask a series of questions. You'd have them entered into the Plickers site, and you'd put them up. And even if it's on your computer or whatever device you have, or you're just asking the questions, the kids hold up the QR codes, and based on whatever side is up, that answers A, B, C, or D. So there's 4 sides to the square, so they turn it to make sure that their side is the correct one. And then you use your phone to scan the whole room, and you'll see on your phone as it is scanning that it's collecting the data and the answers from every kid. And you'll see it pop up name by name. And so then there, boom, you've got your data for whatever you're working on in that case. Plus, it's a lot of fun for the kids to be able to turn and hold it up and have that experience. And if you have the ability to project onto a projector or something like that, you can put the if you could create a game out of it and put the scoreboard up, and you can show them really that how you're collecting the data, but then you can also have those the metacognitive conversations with them, so you can see the results that 20% thought that the answer was A, while 60% thought it was B, and so on and so forth. We can ask that, okay, explain to me why you chose A. Those of you who chose A, because you have the names, you can know exactly who chose A. Tell me why you chose A. Well, I chose it because of X, Y, and Z. Okay, those of you who didn't choose A, did that change your mind? Would you change your mind to A? Okay, some of you did. Well, why? And then so you can talk about the data. It's not just about collecting the data. It's about talking about it. And then it's about knowing what's happening after that. So in that, that would be one piece that you can do. And really, in scenarios like yours where teachers maybe don't have the devices for the kids, starting to think about ways that can just make your life easier. That's where I normally start with the teacher is what can I do to train you up to make your life a little easier? What could we do to, is it possible for that we can set up a robot to do your grading for you on some of your things? Is it possible for you to cut down on some paper that you have to do for communication pieces with your kids and with your parents? Things like that if I can make your life a little easier and I can open up some brain space for you, then it can open up some ideas of other things that you can do with your kids. I had a teacher here in Texas who works for he's a friend. And as we were talking, he was like, how can you justify throwing technology in front of students when it's so distracting and it can cause so much disruption in a classroom? And I said, well, the first step is not me with your kids, it's me with you. And opening up an opportunity for you to make life easier for you, so that we're working. Eric Schinniger, who's a principal and speaker, he says, work smarter, not harder, right? I want to create an opportunity for you to work smarter, not harder, so that then we can create an opportunity for your students to work harder. They're the ones learning, so they should be the ones doing the hard work. The teachers shouldn't have to do that. So we're going to create opportunities. We're going to innovate to make those things happen moving forward. So Plickers would be my one that I would suggest for you at first, but then I could keep going for hours and hours. So maybe next time.
Okay, so I wanted to just finish the pod now by your secretary coordinator digital learning in the US. That just sounds a real fab job for you, Taylor. It's just absolutely a perfect meld, right? And but moving from what you were doing in Hong Kong to what you're doing in Texas now, do you miss anything about being back in Asia?
Absolutely. We've been here in Texas for 3 years, and it was where we were supposed to be. It was right after my son was born, and I mean, this probably better than I do with your kids, but we were in an 800 square foot flat, and our son was born. That put us at 3 kids, and we were at kind of an impasse. We had to decide, because my wife had actually been staying home with our kids for that last contract that I had. So that final 2 years we were there, she was able to stay home. And so we had to make a choice, because we were going to need more space. And it was either we decided to just let's go back to the U.S., let's find a job in the U.S. so we can have some more space and spread out a little bit, see what opportunities are there, or my wife might have had to go back to work so that we could get a nanny and a larger flat to live in. And so, we also wanted to, go back to kind of our home and have our kids experience having a yard and being able to different experiences that are here that we had when we were kids. Yeah. And so, it was a hard decision to make, but we really felt like the right doors were opened for us, and literally applied to jobs across the United States and just ended up here in Fort Worth, Texas. Shout out to my district. It's actually called, we are Birdville Independent School District, but there is no Birdville town. We have 5 or 6 different cities that we serve. So it's cool. But it was the right choice, but we miss a lot of, we miss the food, we miss the culture, we miss having Chinese New Year as a break. We miss, the opportunities for travel, and seeing the different parts of the world, and things like that. So I don't think that we are done with being international. I think it's just, we are taking a time to be here in the United States, but I think that we will be looking, in the future to go back one day. So it was a forming experience for my wife and I. 3 of our 4 kids were born there. I'm gonna have to tell my daughter, who is due in April, well, your siblings, they were born in a country called Hong Kong, and you were born in a country called Texas. And so just kind of give her that uniqueness about her. So there's a lot of stuff that we do miss, but there's a lot of stuff here that we're really enjoying. And for me, in my career and growing, it's been really cool to just have some different opportunities with different ideas, going from being a technology coach who's working primarily in the classroom to being a district administrator who's working with the leadership and really throwing out ideas that can influence a lot of teachers is really cool as well. And it's been an awesome opportunity that I've really, really enjoyed and I'm thankful for. So we're just trucking right along here, and we'll see what happens in the future. If my past says anything, we're not in one place for very long.
Yeah, see what opens up. I mean, this has been a fantastic podcast, Taylor. Really appreciate your time and coming on. Real load of good stuff there. As I said, hopefully in the future, China Jeducation have you back on and go much more into detail with. If you want to reach out with Taylor, listeners, I will put his contact details on the show notes, like we do to most of our educational experts. All the best for the birth of your next baby. And as I said before, really look forward to having you on sometime in the future. This is China Jedi, people. If you're an English-speaking teacher from anywhere in the world and you have a bachelor's degree but need an official and accredited teaching license to get a job, get a visa to teach abroad, or most importantly to learn all those things you wish you knew before you stood in front of 30-plus students, then reach now to Teach Now and secure a professional US District of Columbia license in as little as 9 months. Online in no time, low cost, high quality. Teach Now. Get in the game. Immediately receive a $100 discount off your tuition by signing up to the Teach Now program via the link www.teach-now.edu/China Jedi.
May the smile be with you.